In today's episode, we examine 6 fatal stupid decisions made by wealthy individuals, from a luxurious private wine tasting turned into a showpiece stunt to a custom-built wellness experiment carried out inside a dangerous enclosure no one dared to enter. It was March 18, 2016, in a private tasting room tucked into the rolling hills of Napa Valley, California. Afternoon light filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking dormant vineyards as a small, exclusive group gathered for a reserved showcase. Huxley Prent was 52 years old. He worked in commercial property acquisition and had built a reputation for hosting elaborate private events where every detail fell under his direct control. Friends described him as theatrical, meticulous, and resistant to outside advice. He preferred to manage presentations himself, often dismissing professional assistance in favor of personal flair. His need to orchestrate every moment had become a defining characteristic among those who knew him well. Colleagues noted that he rarely accepted suggestions once his mind was set on a particular approach. Weeks earlier, Huxley had purchased a bottle from a private collector. The wine had been stored upright for decades. When it arrived, staff at the venue noticed the cork had expanded beyond the neck and showed visible cracks along its surface. The deterioration was evident even without close inspection. They recommended using a specialized extraction tool designed for fragile seals. Huxley declined immediately, brushing off the warning in front of his guests and insisting the bottle be opened by hand during the event. Over the years, he had turned biting into corks into a performative habit, a reckless display he framed as authenticity and repeated despite prior warnings. The ritual had never failed him before. He viewed it as a signature moment that set his gatherings apart. The group gathered around a long wooden table. Several guests held up phones to record the moment. Huxley positioned himself at the head, gripping the bottle firmly. He began working the corkscrew in slowly. The cork resisted, then split unevenly under pressure. A dense fragment broke free suddenly as the seal gave way. The sound was sharp and sudden. Huxley had leaned forward at the exact moment of release. The piece entered his open mouth. Reflexively, he bit down. The fragment slid backward into his airway and lodged completely, sealing the trachea. His expression shifted immediately. He reached for his throat and staggered sideways, striking the edge of the table with his shoulder. The bottle fell and shattered on the floor. 2 guests moved toward him. One attempted to perform abdominal thrusts, while another called emergency services. The obstruction did not dislodge. Huxley dropped to his knees, then collapsed fully onto the floor. His skin began to discolor. Breathing stopped within minutes. The room fell silent except for the voice on the phone line guiding the attempts at assistance. Paramedics arrived approximately 12 minutes after the initial call. They used forceps to remove the cork fragment from the airway. No pulse was detected. Resuscitation efforts continued for several minutes, but produced no response. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The recordings captured by guests were reviewed during the investigation. They confirmed the sequence of events from the moment the cork broke to the collapse. The medical examiner determined the cause of death to be complete airway obstruction due to accidental choking. The cork fragment measured roughly 1 inch in length and had wedged in a position that prevented any airflow. Witnesses reported that the entire incident unfolded in less than 4 minutes from the moment the cork broke to the final collapse. The venue was cleared and secured for documentation. The case was ruled accidental. No further action was recommended. It was January 9th, 2015, on a private dock extending into Puget Sound, Washington. An overnight freeze had left thin ice on sections of the dock and the surrounding water. The temperature held at 28 degrees Fahrenheit. Visibility was limited, and no exterior lighting was active as a small group watched from the shoreline. Zelda Gort was 41 years old. She worked in investment management, overseeing high net worth portfolios, and was known for hosting private gatherings that reflected her comfort with risk and exclusivity. Friends described her as competitive and confident, often drawn to physical challenges that tested limits. She rarely consulted safety protocols before initiating events, preferring spontaneity over preparation. The winter challenge had been her idea, framed as a test of nerve rather than a safety exercise. Those who knew her well noted that she routinely dismissed warnings, viewing caution as a barrier to experience. Earlier that day, freezing rain had moved through the area. By nightfall, ice had formed across exposed surfaces near the water. No measurements had been taken to assess thickness or stability. Zelda had not inspected the dock before announcing the challenge. She wore smooth-soled boots with minimal tread. Several guests positioned themselves nearby, with phones ready to record. The plan was simple: walk the length of the dock and return. No safety equipment had been prepared or discussed. Zelda stepped onto the wooden planks. Ice covered sections unevenly, with patches of exposed wood between frozen areas. She moved forward slowly, arms extended for balance. Her lead foot made contact with a sheet of ice roughly 15 feet from the starting point. The surface fractured immediately under her weight, and she slipped sideways off the edge of the dock into the ice-covered water beside the structure. Her head struck the wooden frame on the way down. The impact was audible to those watching from shore. Broken ice and the dock's edge trapped her shoulders below the waterline, preventing her from surfacing. Witnesses shouted and moved toward the dock. One guest attempted to reach the break point, but stopped when the ice beneath him began to crack. Another called emergency services, while a third searched for tools to widen the opening. Repeated attempts to pull her free fractured the ice further, but the opening remained too narrow for extraction. Her body submerged fully. Movement stopped. The water temperature was measured later at 34 degrees Fahrenheit. The group on shore continued efforts to break through, but lacked proper equipment. Emergency responders arrived approximately 15 minutes after the initial call. They used cutting tools to remove sections of ice around the site. Zelda was recovered and brought to shore. Blunt trauma to the head was visible. Water was present in the lungs. No pulse was detected. Resuscitation efforts were attempted, but produced no response. She was pronounced dead at the scene. The investigation included measurements of the ice layer, which averaged less than 1 inch in thickness across the affected area. Witnesses provided consistent accounts of the fall and the failed rescue attempts. The medical examiner determined the cause of death to be blunt head trauma combined with cold water drowning. The sequence suggested she had lost consciousness upon impact with the dock frame, preventing any attempt to self-rescue. The dock structure showed damage consistent with the described impact point. The case was ruled accidental. Authorities noted that no safety assessment had been conducted prior to the event, and that lighting conditions had been inadequate for the activity attempted. It was July 22, 2017, in a private kitchen inside a luxury estate in Scottsdale, Arizona. Afternoon sunlight poured through west-facing windows as temperatures outside reached 104 degrees Fahrenheit. The space had been arranged for content creation, with multiple cameras positioned around granite countertops and high-end appliances. Romina Quayle was 38 years old. She worked in digital content creation, producing lifestyle and wellness content, financed largely through personal wealth rather than sponsorships or ad revenue. Her financial independence allowed her to maintain a fully equipped home studio and treat content creation as a personal project rather than a livelihood. Friends described her as energetic and detail-oriented, but prone to multitasking, often moving between activities without pausing for cleanup or safety checks. Her videos frequently featured elaborate recipes prepared while she addressed multiple topics at once. Earlier that morning, Romina had dealt with a pest control issue in her storage area using a concentrated, restricted-use liquid pesticide supplied through her estate's maintenance accounts. The container remained open on the kitchen counter while she worked, positioned near her food preparation space. Although the bottle was clearly labeled with warning symbols and handling instructions, she had handled the concentrated liquid directly and did not wash her hands or clear the workspace before transitioning into cooking. Residue from the chemical remained on the counter surface near the preparation area. She began filming a dessert segment featuring melted chocolate. Her routine involved frequent taste testing using her finger, a signature element that viewers expected. The chocolate had been heated to the proper consistency and sat in a ceramic bowl near the edge of the counter. She positioned herself between the chocolate and the chemical container, with both items within easy reach. Romina dipped her finger into the melted chocolate, a motion she had performed countless times during previous recordings. Unbeknownst to her, residue from the chemical had transferred onto the rim of the bowl and into the chocolate during preparation. She brought her finger to her mouth and immediately reacted to a sharp, chemically bitter taste. Within several minutes, nausea set in, and she stepped away from the counter, reaching for a towel. Vomiting began and continued in waves. Over the next several minutes, her hands began to tremble, followed by muscle spasms that spread from her arms through her torso. Breathing became increasingly labored and irregular. She attempted to reach her phone, but collapsed onto the kitchen floor before making contact. Respiratory distress worsened as the effects progressed, and breathing eventually ceased. Portions of the incident were later recovered from recorded footage, including the food preparation segment and the initial onset of distress. The recording stopped before the collapse. No one else was present in the residence at the time. Emergency responders were called by a neighbor who had noticed the front door standing open hours later. They found Romina unresponsive on the kitchen floor. No pulse was detected. The scene showed clear evidence of chemical contamination. Residue from the pest control liquid was found on the kitchen counter, the rim of the chocolate bowl, and on Romina's hands. Toxicology analysis confirmed the presence of the chemical compound in her system at lethal levels. The container was examined and found to match the substance detected. The medical examiner determined the cause of death to be accidental poisoning through ingestion of a concentrated pesticide. The sequence of events was reconstructed using the recorded footage, which showed the contamination occurring during the taste testing process. No criminal activity was suspected. It was May 11th, 2018. The luxury high-rise balcony overlooked Miami Beach, Florida, from the 28th floor. Morning sunlight reflected off the ocean surface below, creating a brilliant view across Biscayne Bay. Temperature held at 82 degrees Fahrenheit, with humidity at 75%. Heavy rain had fallen overnight, leaving puddles across the concrete slab and saturating the building materials. The balcony extended 12 feet from the main structure, supported by steel anchors embedded in the building's facade. Dutton Flack was 60 years old. He worked in financial services and had recently retired with substantial wealth. Friends described him as status-conscious, detail-oriented about appearances, and prone to expensive renovations that showcased his success. He had spent considerable money upgrading the balcony without consulting structural engineers. The modifications included oversized stone furniture, decorative planters, and a compact hot tub that had been installed 6 months earlier. No load assessments had been performed following the additions. Neighbors had previously commented on the extensive nature of the changes, noting that the space appeared crowded with new elements. The morning gathering had been planned to showcase the renovated space. Several guests had arrived for brunch, with phones ready to capture the panoramic view. The balcony now supported approximately 3,000 pounds of additional weight beyond its original design specifications. The overnight rain had saturated the concrete slab, reducing the remaining safety margin of the already overloaded anchors. Dutton positioned himself near the outer edge to demonstrate the unobstructed sightlines his renovation had created. He had been discussing the cost and complexity of the project when the incident occurred. The failure occurred without warning. One side of the anchor system failed first, triggering a rapid progressive collapse across the remaining supports. A sharp cracking sound preceded the detachment. The outer portion of the slab tilted downward at a steep angle. Dutton lost his footing immediately as the surface shifted beneath him. Guests inside the apartment heard the sound and rushed toward the windows. He fell approximately 28 floors, a distance of roughly 280 feet. The descent lasted several seconds. He struck the pavement below chest first, with his head impacting immediately after. Multiple ribs fractured on contact. The force punctured both lungs, causing rapid internal bleeding. Witnesses from nearby buildings reported hearing the impact from several blocks away. The detached balcony section crashed moments later, scattering debris across the street. Emergency responders arrived within minutes of the initial calls. Dutton was found unresponsive on the sidewalk. No vital signs were detected. The injuries were consistent with a high-altitude fall. Paramedics confirmed death at the scene due to massive trauma. The area was immediately cordoned off due to falling debris concerns. The structural investigation revealed that the balcony anchors had been overloaded beyond their rated capacity. The additional weight from the renovations, combined with moisture saturation from the overnight rain, had exceeded the safety margins. Engineering analysis showed that the original anchors were designed to support the balcony's initial configuration, but had not been upgraded to accommodate the added elements. The building management had no record of permits or structural assessments for the modifications. The medical examiner determined the cause of death to be multiple blunt force trauma resulting from the fall. The case was ruled accidental. Building inspectors condemned the remaining balcony structure and ordered immediate safety assessments for similar units throughout the complex. It was August 3, 2016. Lake Havasu stretched across the Arizona desert under intense afternoon heat, with water temperature reaching 84 degrees Fahrenheit. The surface reflected harsh sunlight, creating glare that reduced visibility across the crowded waterway. Air temperature held at 108 degrees. Multiple recreational watercraft moved through the area, generating crossing wakes and choppy conditions. The restricted zone near the marina typically saw heavy traffic during peak hours, with boats and personal watercraft operating in close proximity. Brickster Trine was 34 years old. He worked in digital currency investment and had accumulated significant wealth through early market positions. Friends described him as risk-seeking, competitive, and drawn to activities that provided social media content. He had developed a reputation for performing stunts on various equipment, often disabling safety features to achieve more dramatic results. His approach to recreational activities typically prioritized spectacle over precaution. That afternoon, Brickster had rented a high-performance personal watercraft designed for experienced operators. The machine featured electronic speed limiting and stability controls. He declined the offered life vest, stating it would interfere with his planned filming. Before departing, he disabled the speed governor, overriding the manufacturer's safety restrictions. The waterway was busy with weekend traffic, creating multiple wake patterns and unpredictable water conditions. He began recording sharp turn maneuvers at high speed. The watercraft was traveling at approximately 55 miles per hour when it encountered a large wake from a passing boat. The crossing waves struck the hull at an angle, causing the nose to pitch upward suddenly. The machine became airborne briefly before the front end tilted beyond the recovery point. Brickster was ejected forward at full speed. He struck the water head first from a height of roughly 8 feet. The impact occurred at the original travel speed, creating impact forces comparable to a solid surface at that speed. His cervical spine fractured immediately upon contact. The injury severed the spinal cord, causing immediate incapacitation. His body went limp and submerged face down in the choppy water. Nearby riders witnessed the ejection and moved toward the site. They reached him within approximately 2 minutes and pulled him to the surface. No movement was detected in his arms or legs. His head tilted at an unnatural angle. One rider supported his neck, while another called for emergency assistance. They maintained flotation while waiting for responders. Emergency medical personnel arrived by boat within 8 minutes of the initial call. They transferred Brickster to a backboard and transported him to shore. No pulse was detected during the transfer. Resuscitation efforts were attempted but produced no response. He was pronounced dead at the marina. The medical examination revealed a complete fracture of the second cervical vertebra, consistent with high-speed water impact. The injury caused catastrophic spinal trauma, leaving him immediately incapacitated and unable to protect his airway. Water was present in the lungs, indicating secondary drowning after the initial trauma. The personal watercraft was recovered and inspected. All mechanical systems functioned properly, but the speed-limiting device had been deliberately bypassed. Witness accounts confirmed the sequence of events from the wake encounter through the recovery efforts. The investigation determined that the combination of excessive speed and the disabled safety systems had contributed to the severity of the accident. The case was ruled accidental death due to cervical spine fracture with drowning. Authorities noted that proper safety equipment and adherence to speed limits could have prevented the fatal outcome. It was December 2nd, 2015. The private estate in Aspen, Colorado, sat surrounded by snow-covered peaks under a clear winter sky. Temperature outside held at 18 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside the custom wellness facility, a high-temperature sauna had been installed in a converted basement room. The space featured cedar walls and a single entrance with a heavy wooden door. Ventilation was minimal, designed to maintain extreme heat levels. The facility operated independently from the main house heating system. Vina Skaggs was 47 years old. She worked in health and wellness consulting, specializing in extreme therapeutic practices. Friends described her as experimental, determined, and prone to pushing physical limits in pursuit of optimal performance. She had invested heavily in biohacking equipment and frequently tested unconventional treatments on herself. Her approach to wellness often involved eliminating safety measures she viewed as unnecessary limitations. Months earlier, Vina had commissioned the custom sauna installation. The unit was designed to reach temperatures exceeding standard recommendations. She had specifically requested the removal of automatic shutoff features, preferring manual control over all functions. The door latch had previously shown signs of sticking, occasionally requiring force to open from the inside. No repairs had been scheduled. She typically used the sauna alone after intense exercise sessions, believing isolation enhanced the therapeutic benefits. That evening, Vina entered the sauna following a workout routine. She set the temperature controls to maximum, reaching approximately 195 degrees Fahrenheit. The session was intended to last 30 minutes. She positioned herself on the upper bench, where heat concentration was highest. The door closed behind her, with the familiar heavy sound of the latch engaging. The latch mechanism failed to release when she attempted to exit, likely worsened by heat expansion and prior wear. The handle turned, but the door remained sealed. She applied increasing force, but the mechanism had jammed completely. The temperature continued to rise beyond the set point due to the disabled safety controls. Heat began to accumulate rapidly in the enclosed space. Severe dehydration developed rapidly as the exposure continued. Her body temperature rose to dangerous levels as the sauna exceeded 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Skin blistering appeared on exposed areas. The extreme heat overwhelmed her body's cooling mechanisms. Heat stroke caused disorientation, followed by loss of consciousness. Cardiovascular collapse followed as the extreme heat overwhelmed her system. Staff discovered her several hours later during routine evening checks. The door required tools to force open due to the jammed latch. Vina was found unresponsive on the floor of the sauna. The internal temperature was later measured at approximately 210 degrees Fahrenheit. No vital signs were detected. The scene showed evidence of prolonged exposure to extreme heat. Emergency responders confirmed death from hyperthermia. The medical examination revealed severe dehydration, heat-related tissue damage, and core body temperature elevation consistent with fatal heat exposure. The sauna's temperature controls were found set to maximum with all safety features disabled. The door latch showed mechanical failure that prevented normal operation. The investigation documented the sequence of equipment modifications that had eliminated standard safety protections. The combination of excessive temperature, disabled automatic shutoffs, and the malfunctioning door latch had created fatal conditions. The case was ruled accidental death due to hyperthermia. Authorities noted that standard safety equipment and regular maintenance could have prevented the tragedy. The facility was subsequently sealed pending safety compliance review. Thanks for watching. Want to see more? Click on your screen now.